Through arrests and protests, Nelson Mandela's wishes stayed true and clear. Hope for freedom, equality, and justice in South Africa were the goals of this man's prideful dream. He is an ongoing reminder that persistence pays off. Rolihlahla Mandela was born on July 18, 1918 in Mvezo, South Africa, to mother Nonkofi Nosekeni and father Nkosi Mafai-Kanaiswa Gadla Mandela. He was the first in his family to attend school, where his teacher gave him the English name Nelson. His time in school proved successful, where he started developing an interest in South African history.
At the age of 9, his father died and he was adopted by the Regent of Thembaland and given royal responsibilities. In 1939, Nelson enrolled at the University College of Fort Hare for a Bachelor's of Arts degree. He focused on Roman Dutch law his first year, which would aid his future career in civil service. He was expelled for participating in a boycott against university policies.
While on his way home from the university, Mandela became aware that the regent was arranging a marriage for him. Once he pondered his options, he fled to the city of Johannesburg, just outside the capital of South Africa. Mandela decided to complete his bachelor's degree at the University of South Africa. Shortly after earning that degree, he enrolled at the University of Witwatersrand to study law. While at the university, Mandela became involved in the movement against racial discrimination. Mandela soon dropped out of the university because he couldn't afford it. Mandela then involved himself with the anti-apartheid movement by joining the African National Congress. Their protests were deemed ineffective and they chose to turn to more destructive methods. In 1956, Nelson Mandela, along with 150 other ANC members, were arrested and charged with treason.
1961, Mandela led a national workers' strike where he was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison. In 1963, he was brought to trial with his fellow ANC leaders while they were sentenced to life imprisonment for their 1956 protests. While being in prison at Robben Island, Mandela contracted tuberculosis, and for no other reason than him being a black politic, he was given very little treatment. Mandela and his fellow inmates were beaten and inhumanely punished for the smallest of infractions. However, while he was in prison, he earned his Bachelor of Law degree through a University of London program.
Oliver Tambo began a campaign to free Mandela from prison, and as pressure grew on the protests, the government decided to give Nelson his freedom in exchange for political compromises. Because of these compromises, Nelson declined the offer and was transferred to Pollsmoor Prison, where he was placed under house arrest. In 1988, a new president took the office of South Africa and voted to lift the ban on the ANC, and on February 11, 1990, Nelson Mandela was officially a free man.
1993, Mandela and the President of South Africa jointly accepted the Nobel Peace Prize for their work toward dismantling apartheid. On April 27, 1994, Mandela had voted for the first time in his life. And on May 10th, Nelson Mandela officially became the first black president of South Africa.
The time for the healing of the wounds has come. The moment to bridge the chasms that divide us has come. The time to build is upon us. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. We commit ourselves to the construction of a complete, just, and lasting peace. We understand it still that there is no easy road to freedom. We know it well that none of us acting alone can achieve success. We must therefore act together as a united people for national reconciliation, for nation building, for the birth of a new world. Let there be justice for all. Let there be peace for all. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign.
In his first 5 years of presidency, Mandela had accomplished many things. He created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which investigated human rights and political violations committed by supporters and opponents of apartheid. He developed many social and economic programs looking to increase living standards of South African citizens.
He established a strong central government that prohibited discrimination against minorities. Lastly, but certainly not least, he founded the Reconstruction and Development Plan, which enabled the South African government to fund the creation of jobs, housing, and basic health care. Ultimately, in 1999, Nelson Mandela decided to officially step down as president. Nelson continued to publish many books and raise money for the countless foundations he established. In 2001, he was diagnosed and began treatment for cancer and decided in June of 2004 to retire from the public eye and remain in his homeland of Johannesburg. While battling cancer, he continued to support the fight against AIDS, which killed one of his sons. In July of 2009, the United Nations declared July 18th Nelson Mandela International Day to promote global peace. Mandela, during his final years, was continuously hospitalized for many health issues. Finally, on December 5th, 2013, at the ripe age of 95, Nelson Mandela died in his home in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Nelson Mandela was not the first and certainly not the last in world history to speak out against inequality, injustice, and freedom, or lack thereof. His accomplishments and achievements have strengthened the bond between man and his rights. To this day, he still remains one of the most idolized people in the world, and he deserves every minute of it. Nelson Mandela is a perfect example of how much you can achieve with courage, strength, and passion.